Let's get cracking with our data. Let's actually output something on the screen or get the data here on the front end. So how do we do that? I don't know. We'll see. Let me delete this file because I'm going to show you what that is in a bit. Okay, how do we get going? Well, the first thing I want you to do is just head over to our backend, our Strapi, and go over to that playground again, localhost 1337/GraphQL, okay? And what we do is we'll just query the data here. So let's get the data that we want up and running here. Again, make sure, hopefully you have a couple of items in here available. If not, just create a couple of entries and then we're good to go. So what we're gonna do is do a query. So query, curly brackets, and then we wanna get the products. So let's do products, curly brackets, data, curly brackets, attributes, curly brackets. Let's get the title. So let's hit play. Look at that, we have all of our different products. Cool. Okay, let's get everything then. Description, price, slug, and the images. And remember, images, we need to kind of go in here and say image data, attributes, and formats, just like that. And then when we run it again, boom, we have our description, price, slug, and image. Here we have all of these different formats from thumbnail to large to small. Gives us lots of flexibility. Now again, unfortunately, we cannot keep going down here and maybe extract one of these because it's a JSON format and you cannot do that in GraphQL yet, but we can do it on the front end. Anyway, we have this here, so we can just copy it over and create a new folder in our root folder here called lib, like that, and we'll just add all the little helpful tools in here that we're going to need throughout the application. So in this case, we're just going to call this query.js. And I'm going to say export const product query, like that. Set this equal to, do some backticks, and paste the code in there, like that. Let me format this a bit nicely, like that. Okay, cool. So now I can just export this and import it wherever I want to fetch that data, and we are good to go. Now, how do we fetch the data? Well, if we'd be working with the REST API, and if you Google on Strapi, fetch with REST, and just click here, you're gonna see, let's see, is there a simple example that they give us here? It's /API/ I believe, whatever you wanna fetch, like this. See, localhost 1337/API/ in our case, it's gonna be products. Let's see if that works. See, look at that, boom, done, easy. Now by default, if we use the fetch, as you can see, it doesn't give us image. So we have to do some digging and some querying here that gets a bit quite complicated with Strapi, unfortunately. But that's okay, because we're not using that. We're not using fetch, we're using GraphQL. So we can just dig into our data and just extract it like this. Thankfully, it's very simple. But you'd have to do a bit more work. But anyway, it's very easy to access the data like that. But fetch is built in, right? We could just do fetch with the URL. How are we going to do it with GraphQL? Well, there's a bunch of different packages you can use out there, like Apollo Client. But one that we're going to use is something called URQL that makes it very, very simple. And you're going to see in just a second. So just open up your terminal, close it up, say npm install URQL. And hit enter. I have it installed. And then npm run dev again. All right, it's going to appear in your package.json. So URQL. Okay. So what we need to do essentially is go to our app.js, and I actually had it here. Let me get rid of it quickly. Oops, like that. Is import two things from URQL. One of them is going to be something called a provider. And one of them is going to be called a create client. We're going to import these from URQL. All right, so we're going to create this client, const client, which is just a variable, create client. And this is going to take an object with a URL. And our URL essentially is going to be our backend. So localhost 1337/GraphQL. And what I'm going to do is just cut out this component here, open up a pair of parentheses, paste it back, and I'm going to wrap this provider around our component like that. And I'm also going to go in here and pass the value of client. So what's happening here? Goodness gracious, this looks complicated. It's actually really simple. So what we're doing, again, remember our component here essentially is all the different pages that we make. That's going to be rendered out here. So if we create a about.js, that's going to be rendered in here. If we create a component and render it out in the page, that's going to be rendered in here. So essentially this provider is going to give access to our backend, GraphQL, to do all the requests that we desire. All right, so this is where we specify this client. We specify where we want our data from. Our URL is going to be our GraphQL from Strapi. And now anywhere, any component I make in my application, I can fetch that data without providing this URL. All right, all I need to do is go to any application and just make a query. And in this case, we already have one right here. Okay, so we can just go to a component, in this case, our home page. I can go here and I can import something called useQuery from URQL, and also the query I want to fetch. So import product query from ... /lib/query. I mean, you could do this if you'd want to. You could have this in here. That'd be fine, but it just makes everything ugly. So I'd rather just have it in here in a separate file. Cool. So take a look how easy this is going to be. I just import the use query from URQL, and then I want to fetch products from Strapi. All we do is say const results equal to use query, and here is an object, and my query is going to be the product query. That's it. That's it. Just one line of code. How cool is that? And then I can do a console log of results and show you what I got. Let's open up the browser, go over to our next app, scroll down, do a refresh, and whoa, what is all of this? Well, let's open this up and take a look. Oh, we have a bunch of different things. We have this big object going on here. We have data, error, extensions, fetching. Well, that's the cool thing about URQL. It gives you a bit more than you'd probably expect. It tells you if the data is not here yet. It says fetching true. See, data is not here yet. It takes a while for that data to come true and come to the front end. So down here, it says data fetching is false. But look at that, we have our data available with the products. So if we expand this out, look at that, Pavilion t-shirt, underground snacks. All right, and we also have an error. In case it gives an error, it gives us a nice little message that we can output. So what we can do is extract these three different things: data, error, and fetching, and then display something else out on the screen depending in what state we are on. So how do we extract those things? Well, we can do const and we can do curly brackets and say data, fetching, and error. And where are we pulling these out from? Well, from the results, right? That we console logged out. So now we can just do a little check. We can literally say check for the data coming in. So we can say if fetching, we can return a p tag saying, oh, our data is still loading. So output this on the screen, output this paragraph. If we have an error, we can return something else. We can say p and say, oh no. And then we can say error, the message. All right, whatever error message it's going to throw, it's going to display out here for us. Otherwise, well, we have access to the data. So let's take a look and see if that works. If I'm going to refresh, you're going to see for a slight second there, you're going to see a loading screen. Well, yeah, our data is not available yet, so it's going to output that. And look at that, we have our products with all of our data. Amazing. So in the next episode, we are going to create the component, render this out, and do some more fun stuff. So well done. See you in the next episode.